specific to Galveston County, we can go in and say, look, I understand you have an expense ratio of 25% blanket for the Galveston County area for this property type. However, Lamarck has got a utility issue. Utility bills are going to go up and triple in this next year. They can go back in and recalculate it and go, all right, instead of 25%, we're going to put you at 28, 29, 30% expense ratio. So that lowers that NOI, which lowers value. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Anyone have any, just raise your hand, speak, or y'all have any questions during this process. It's much more for you to hear y'all talking to me. So, but these are just, and for homes, it's the same way. Homes, if you just will protest it and just say, they will usually offer you a value lower than that. Might not be much, but they'll at least do something. So even if you just do something, just at least try.
Okay.
Can you do that?
There it is.
Through the e-file, like once you do the e-file, will they go ahead and tell you, so you might not even have to do the informal, they might just say, okay, yes?
No, typically, and we don't do the e-files, so I don't get to see it very often.
Okay.
But from what I hear from people is you'll send an email. It's all through a portal system, through their online system. You'll submit your information on why you think your value it's got you at 400. You think it should be at 380. They're going to review it. They'll come back and go, hey, we've looked at everything. Because again, the mass appraisal system is a computer system. So that initial notice value is computer generated. Once you protest, then a set of human eyes are going to be looking at that property and looking at the data, more specifically looking at that sale. So then they'll come back, they might email you and say, are you willing to go 385? And if you are, you'll say, yes, I'm good with that number. And then they'll send you a settlement waiver, you sign the settlement waiver, your value gets dropped to 385.
Okay, but you have to put in a number what you think it is.
Correct.
Okay.
And it is very, but at least try it. Because we'll throw a number back and it's worth it. Everyone is a part of getting really close, guys. I'm sorry. Thanks, James. Everyone is a part of brokers, investors, and owners. So make sure if you have a broker that they give you all your stuff and ask for brokers for help. And a broker over here said if you ever need comps, they will help you. Most brokers will help you. Most appraisers will help you if you need data. And so make sure always provide. You want real leasing time data. So they don't want data from 3 or 4 years ago. They want stuff. But then remember, looking at January 1st. That's the data that you're looking for. And then what market? Make sure to support your market rent arguments. And so that's really key. Investors understand the impact on returns. And prioritize appeals annually. So make sure we do that every year. You don't stop. A lot of these large companies, they even have people that do this for this, all that they do for this, like large brokerage firms or real estate investment companies. Factor task risk into underwriting. We do a lot of reports for people that we do tax risk. So what are their values going to be in the tax in the next 5 years? And we kind of help project them. Average case, best case, and worst case. And so that means, like, if you're buying a $100 million office building, what is my taxes going to look like over the next 5 years? You need to count that for you when your valuation. And owners and operators, when y'all own your properties, make sure that it's a tax strategy that you need to make sure to implement in the entire process. Provide accurate financials. So make sure to account for every financial that you possibly can, every expense, every income, and track that the entire process. Identify property issues early, and so whether that is repairs and maintenance issues, whether that's occupancy issues, or whether it's a water issue that you have that no one else has, or whatever issues that could hurt the rent or sell of the property, make sure to identify that.
And here's another point on repairs and maintenance. If you had a repairs and maintenance expense in March of 2025 and you have repaired it as of November 2025, that no longer affects the value, because the value again is as of January 1st of 2026. So the district will ask, you'll go in, well, I just, I had a water heater, or I had, a hole in the roof, and they'll ask you, well, have you repaired it? I'm like, yes, I have repaired it. Okay, Well, it's repaired now, so we are valuing it as of January 1st of 2026. So if it's functioning and working as of today, then we can't deduct the value of what that cost is. So if you repair things before January 1st, if you can withstand and not repair them until February, then and support it with pictures as of December 31st of 2025 to show, hey, as of this date, it was not working or whatever item, that can be helpful. So.
All right, 4 mistakes that cost you the appeal. Missing deadlines, we talked about that earlier. Make sure that you file for that with May 15th. Incomplete data. If you're doing an apartment complex, shopping center, anything like that, if you don't have rent rolls to submit, it's going to hurt you. Make sure they're going to look at operating statements too. Overly aggressive arguments, claims of unsupported data by damaged credibility, and future bills. We get a lot of times people say, my property shouldn't be worth that much. Why? It's just not as nice as the other ones, but you don't have any cash. You're just complete this very, people just forgot the word.
It's just an opinion.
And so make sure that you support it with data, and it can't be, just because it doesn't work today to the counties. Treating it as a one-time event, tax charge must be integrated in annual asset management. You get it lower this year, what's going to happen the next year, guys? Going to increase it back up. Does anyone know how much they can increase it every year?
Nope.
10% for homestead, right?
There is no limit for anything else.
Except for the properties under $5 million.
So the tax code has changed for the past 3 years. This year is the last year unless the state votes it back in, but they have done caps on secondary properties or investment or commercial. Anything below $5 million would be capped at a 20%. You'll see on your notice, I don't know why they call it this, they're calling it a circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker.
And so that is that cap. So it's capping that. And that's just for the taxable value. That doesn't mean the market value didn't increase 40%. So when you go in and protest your taxes, you're not protesting this number, the taxable or assessed value. You're only fighting market. So if your assessed is at $2 million, but your market's at 4, and you get your value down to 3, there's actually no tax savings because you're only paying taxes on the $2 million because your property was at $1.8 million the year before. And so it's increased and capped at $2 million because of that 20% increase. That sort of thing. So.
This can be confusing to a lot of people. And next year, if they don't increase at all, and they keep it flat, it's still going to go up. Because why?
That taxable is going to keep going up another 20% until it reaches the market. We'll never go higher than that. Whatever market is, that's the max it can go, and it will continue to go.
That's why some people say, I'm not going to protest because I'm still within that 10%, but at some point it's going to catch up. So you want to bring that value down. Even though you're not going to save you any money, you still need to bring that value down because it's just going to catch it at some point.
Is there an average for, say, multifamily under $5 million? Galveston, let's see, class property on what it goes up to, what their averages?
They run models differently every year. So like a county like Galveston, I live in Galveston County, and I'm very familiar with it. They will focus on certain property types on certain years. So like last year, they focused on office buildings last year very heavily. They kind of left the apartments alone last year. They hit the apartments in 2024 very hard because there was an influx of apartment sales, people buying apartments
In Galveston.
in Galveston County. And so it just depends.
Apartments.
Every county does not have the staff that Harris County has. So in fact, Galveston County has a major staffing problem right now. And so there becomes issues with that. So when it comes to revaluing, and then a lot of people too will see too, like in Brazoria County, last year they didn't raise values much, and they could have. They should have, in my opinion, in the sense that this year they've increased everyone, and so everyone sees a very massive increase over a 2-year period when people don't realize, well, how can they take my value? Like, well, last year's value, they didn't increase, and mainly because they were trying to limit the amount of protests that came in.
Harris County did that.
Harris County has done that too. So counties do things strategically
Right.
so that they can facilitate the appeal process for them based on their manpower as well as arbitration, their arbitrators and their board members.
So you're saying capitalize off the lack of manpower?
You can.
And it can't come back later.
There's times to do that. That's why it's important to protest every year. It's not a guarantee win every year. And two, it's, as we've said, it's data driven. And if your neighbor and all around you have been selling for $500,000 and you think you're worth $4 million, get ready. You're not going to be worth $4 million. You're going to be worth $500,000. So it's in the residential world. Data is very important, and the counties have access to it.
Unless you're the birthplace of Beyonce.
So, yeah, in the commercial world, it's a little bit different just because a lot of people don't disclose that data.
Yeah, for a house, MLS, you know, if you're residential brokers, everything's on MLS. Harris County, Galveston County, all of them have access to that. So what that typically means is homes are typically going to be a little bit closer to what they are. Commercial, it's a bigger, people aren't sharing what they pay for properties. So that gives a bigger, wide spread for the commercial properties versus residential. Just the 4 steps kind of gone over a lot of this stuff already. We just kind of hit home. Review it and assessment handle. We've talked about that a couple times already. Build a data collection process. Keep that stuff already easy. If you're an investor, keep that stuff. Anytime you need to go get a loan, you need to have that stuff available for you. If you ever want to sell it, you need to have that stuff ready for you. So just kind of always have that stuff ready to go. Engage specialists early. So the agent, the sooner you can get this stuff to your, if you do hire an agent to handle your protest for you, get this to them as soon as you can, because it builds their case so much easier, right? And then integrate into asset management. Tax strategy isn't a separate activity. It's part of maximizing your NOI. Anything you want to do as an investor is maximize your NOI. I think that's no different than trying to increase rates. It's another way. If you're saying how much if it's what the big part of what your taxes is worth, if you could save 10-15% of what that does is you. So make that part of your process. Did you raise your hand? No.
Just yawning. Sorry.
And don't get the value you deserve, you get the value you defend.
Yep.
And this is the big deal. And so it's about support. Who has the most support is gonna win. And so that's why it's huge.
So I have a question.
Truth.
I'm fortunate, some of my new builds, I was able to go land value for a few years, but now that we put some on the market and selling them, I'm having to put like 40,000 in escrow because they're coming back. So how do we deal with that?
So,
I want them to assess
it's
it.
a great question. If you're building properties, data is, again, very important. So keeping a schedule of what you have spent up to certain dates, especially that January 1st date, it's key. If you've got a property, so what a county will do, as soon as they see slabs on the ground or forms being made, they're going to start analyzing. And what they'll do on new construction is categorize it as a percent complete. So they'll value it as if it is complete, and then they will discount it. So if they have it at 50% complete, they'll value the property at $500,000. You've got $100,000 in land, so you have $400,000 in improvement value. They're going to put it at $200, so your total is going to be at $300. That $200 plus the $1. If you can prove that your cost as of January 1st at that date was not $200, it was $100 or $125, you can present that to them. But it needs to be official AIA documents. It can't just be an Excel spreadsheet that you've formulated yourself. It can't be on a napkin or a construction piece of paper. It's got to be a formal construction, and it has to show too. So a lot of the time too, entrepreneurial profit is part of anyone developing and building property. No one's going to build a property unless there's something in it for them. That's part of market value. So they include that in that analysis as well. So that most of the time we can argue, hey, it's not built right now, so there's no entrepreneurial profit right now. So they typically will go with the cost that we can present them. Hey, you have it at this, we've actually spent this, and they'll typically drop it. So having that information readily available as soon as possible keeping pictures aligned too, because they'll go out and have someone just drive by the property and go, it's 80% complete, and you're going, whoa, wait a minute, I've only actually spent 50% of my funds, so it should be at 50% complete, not 80% complete. So just having that information is very important.
Like going in, should somebody told me just to wait, I'm like, yeah, but I've got 6 properties at 40,000, people, it's 240,000.
Right.
That's right.
Not making me any money, so should I be the one going in there and asking for them to reassess?
Someone representing you too. I mean, you don't have to do that, and a tax agent can
That's
do that
something
for you
that
too.
would be able to do.
Yes. That information and you'd have to give that to your agent who's going to be doing that fighting for you.
So they don't get what the sales prices are on commercial properties, but if you're a construction worker and you do a tax lien, so the construction do a tax lien, they spent $200,000 on renovations, they know what that is.
Yeah.
They have the access, oh, you spent $200,000 in renovating your office building, I'm gonna increase and push you up. They do that.
Building permits are public knowledge. They go pull building permits every year.
They do that. And so, as James said, January 1st is the day, make sure to keep those records.
Pictures are huge. I can't tell you, like, do you have a picture of what it looked like somewhere near January 1st? And they're like, no, I can't do it.
Very good question. These are the questions, and y'all have any questions for us?
I want,
Sorry.
so we're doing a tax contest on your home state, we're talking about January 1st.
Uh-huh.
So if you do comps, you go do the whole year, say for 25, you do just comps for January?
So you can go further, but like comps in November, December, anything within the.
Anything in 2025. If you do have something that sold in January or February, and your protest, you're not going into the county until August, they'll take a look at that information as well. That's where we get a lot of argument. People call value. Everyone's saying values are going down. As an appraiser, they're really not. They've been very stable across the greater Houston area and really across the state of Texas. There's only certain pockets, but you'll see a house that's listed for sale, right now. Well, the problem is when you're protesting, you're really protesting last year's value because the values are as of 25. So anything that occurs in 26, you will be using that information for next year. So another big key thing too is if you're buying a piece of property and if you're an investor, where we see from a lot of our tax clients and people buying real estate in general, when they go into a property, we've had this too, especially with apartments, it's very, very important to do a pro forma of what your future expenses are going to be. And one of those big key expenses are property taxes. And what we see a lot is they'll go in and see what the property is currently assessed at right now. It might be assessed at, I'll give you an example. We had an apartment client that bought a property in 2025. The assessment was at like 2.8 million. They were purchasing it for $5 million. Well, they went in and did a loan and ran their pro forma with property taxes at a value of 2.8 million. Well, because they bought it, the county found that out because there was a deed change. Well, they found out what the loan amount was, which was 3.2 million.
Damn.
They back into that and go, oh, it's probably close to 5 million. So they assessed it at 5. Well, what ended up happening is that when you run the taxes at 5 million, the value is actually closer to 4 million. So just know when you're going into the property, if you're buying something, I would always assess the taxes at what you're paying for it, because the county will probably find out about it some way or another. Because if you go in and protest it, and they know you purchased something, and they will ask you, what did you pay for it? And guess what? If you say, well, I don't want to tell you, they're automatically going to assume you paid more for it than what we had assessed.
I don't want to tell you.
And they're not going to do anything. They will tell you, you're stuck. Unless you tell us that you paid less than what we have it at, they're not going to do anything.
That's hilarious.
Any other you raise your hand.
I was man. He spoke about Galveston, man. So the apartments are moving, but the real estate's not. Last time I was here, a guy said that the real estate in Galveston was very difficult to move, but you said the apartments
Galveston Island is a completely different world than Galveston County.
Okay.
So
Galveston
the
County.
island, which is that market is vacation rentals
Vacation.
driven. So a lot of people, COVID, were like, guess what? Interest rates are 2.5%. I can afford a second home. So they all went and bought and paid top dollar for their Galveston homes, not realizing, and I grew up in Galveston County, that everything rusts and everything breaks because of the humidity and salt water that comes onto that island. And so